Hello, my name is Austin Belzer, and welcome back to the Austin B Media Podcast. Before we get into the main show, I have to tell you how you can support my work. The way I fund my work, whether it be a review of a movie I rented or paying for Zoom, my Patreon is the way you can help offset those costs. Patrons like Ambula Beulah, Brian Scuttle, David Walters, Joseph Davis of Sip Pop, Matthew Simpson of Awesome Friday, Tom Blackburn, and more help make episodes like this possible. So thank you to all of my lovely patrons out there. Beyond financial support, you can get some pretty sweet perks. Whether you're into 48-hour early access to my reviews and this podcast, monthly surveys, giving direct feedback, commentaries, and just about everything in between, consider becoming a patron for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/AustinBmedia. You can also save 16% if you decide to subscribe annually. On top of that, if you're not ready to subscribe, you can get a 7-day free trial on every tier I offer. With that said, let's get to the show. Hello, my name is Austin Belzer, and welcome back to the Austin B Media Podcast. Today, I'm going to be discussing Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse with my guest, Ayla Ruby, editor-in-chief of Movies We Texted About, which is where you can coincidentally find my review of Five Nights at Freddy's. Thank you so much for that opportunity. You also write for, let me know if this is out of date, the Cosmic Circus, Oscar Central, and CherryPicks, as well as being a member of International Film Society of Critics.
I do, and that's actually where we met. I guess my primary place of being is the Cosmic Circus, and I write a lot about Marvel and all things Spider-Man there, because Spider-Man has a near and dear place in my heart.
Oh, I forgot to wear my Spider-Man shirt.
See, I have it covered. I have my Spider-Verse shirt.
Because I have the Marvel Spider-Man, the PS4 game from PlayStation Experience from when I went in 2017. I specifically remember going to grab it yesterday. I'm like, nope, I got to save that for the Spider-Verse podcast. And this is close enough. It's burgundy red.
It works.
But yeah, I have the same thing with Spider-Man. I've gone to all the opening night things or opening weekend at the very least for Spider-Man's 1, 2, 3, Amazing Spider-Man, both of them, and then all the new Tom Holland ones.
I was so excited. When I went to see Spider-Man No Way Home, like there were people, and I'm like an hour outside of a major metropolitan area, and I didn't expect to see people in cosplay. There were people dressed up in like the full Spider-Man suits inside the theater, and I just keep thinking how that must have been very hot. And they were like amping out the crowd before the show, so that was fun.
Yeah, that's cool. I don't think anyone dressed up for my No Way Home screening. I think it was just all very plain clothes and stuff like this. But yeah, but that theater was electric for reasons we all know.
We might get into some of that sort of here, but not really.
Yeah. So yeah, but before we get into Spider-Verse, because we have a lot to talk about with it, I just want to, is there any movie, show, album, or anything else you want to recommend to listeners/watchers?
I just saw the Marvels yesterday, and I just finished a review for it because I loved it so much. So I would encourage, it's out this weekend, and I'm not sure totally when this podcast will come out, but it should be in theaters when you're listening. But it was just really fun, really fast. Tiana Paris, Iman Vellani, Brie Larson, just like were so fun to watch on screen together. So go see the Marvels. It's really good.
I'll have to read your review because this is, I think, the first Marvel movie where I'm like, do I go see it? Where I'm actually questioning.
Oh man. So I think that there have been a lot of Marvel movies, right? I've lost count of how many.
Plus, yeah.
A lot. You could spend days and days of your life just never watching the movies to try and to catch up. And then there are the TV shows of Loki, of which Loki just came out last night. There's a lot of content. But I think this is really, so the Marvels is really cool in that it doesn't necessarily have the baggage of all whatever 100 hours of other Marvel things. Like you can see it and enjoy it for what it is, which is like a fun comic book movie that's really fast paced. And you won't miss out like these deep references to other universes and other stuff. It's just a fun movie.
Okay, interesting. Because I think the main hang up I have with this movie and why I'm like, is I loved Miss Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, I want to see her do her own thing first.
Yep.
especially with how Miss Marvel ends.
She steals every single scene she's in. She's just got this infectious joy, and it's just so much fun to watch.
Yeah, I'll let you know if I go see it. But keeping the superhero theme alive, I would I can't recommend Invincible season 2.
Okay.
Not yet. I need to see the next half or part or whatever they're calling it.
And we were talking in the pre-show, and you had said that you had just watched last night. You had done 2 shows, and you had just watched Invincible, the second episode of the second season.
Yeah. And there's 2 more left in this quote unquote part.
Hmm.
Um, but I will recommend Loki season 2. I'm actually talking with Matthew Simpson of Awesome Friday this couple days from now, talking spoilers, everything. It's probably going to be a 3-hour podcast.
Oh, for sure. There's so much in there. Just we could probably talk for 3 hours about it now, but yeah.
Yeah, but it's so good. I think the because I think the main problem I have since Endgame with the MCU is it transitioned from character focus to, "Hey, here are all these new heroes," and
Yep.
Loki, especially season 2, is much more character focused on, like,
Hmm.
why are we doing the things we are? And it's got some deep philosophical issues that I think, especially in the finale, that I think are really interesting. And for those who have, followed me for a long time, I'm a sucker for philosophy and sociology. That's just my jam. Yeah, I'd fully recommend Loki season 2. It's pretty quick watch. I think it's what, 6 episode season?
Yeah, it's a 6 episode season. You could binge it in a day if you had the time.
Yeah, and if by chance you haven't seen season 1, I'd obviously go see season 1 and then see season 2, because otherwise you are gonna be completely confused.
I think the recap at the beginning of season 2 is really helpful too, though. I think so. If you haven't seen season 1, you could watch the pilot and then the recap, and you could get a sense of things. And just, I think season 2 is, and again, this is not the Loki podcast, is just so skillfully done that you can catch up and feel invested in these characters because, like you said, it's very character driven.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point, because I think I have a tendency to be like, "Oh, I've already seen this, skip recap." But I didn't for Invisible season 2. But yeah, that's my recommendation. Go see Loki season 2. It's good. Just do a double bill. Do Loki season 2, then the Marvels.
And
Yeah,
then
and then
listen
listen
to
to the podcast.
Austin's podcast because it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Hope it's good for everyone and not too long, but it will be long. It's gonna be a long one. But with that, let's go into Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Probably, yeah, we've got a lot to talk about. Initial impressions of the movie, especially compared to Into the Spider-Verse.
My initial impressions are, first of all, it's incredible. It's a From an animation perspective, I really appreciate how beautiful Across the Spider-Verse is and Into the Spider-Verse was. I think that just overall in general, there's just amazing animation coming out with so much emotional heft and meaning behind the styles. And Across the Spider-Verse, just I have not enough good words for how stunning it was and how beautiful it was. And like there's an online account that's every frame a painting. And I feel like
Yeah.
that is very true with Across the Spider-Verse. It's just gorgeous. What about you?
Sometimes literally.
Yes.
Becau because the second I knew I was in good hands, because I was worried about making a sequel to Into the Spider-Verse, because I was like, "Ah, do we really need a sequel?" That kinda thing. But then once I saw Renaissance Vulture, I was like, "Okay, we're good.
Wasn't
We're
that
good."
cool and unexpected and just the skill to pull that off? I know we'll delve deep into it, but wow.
Yeah, just like the different mediums, because I think I can't remember if it was this or Spider-Punk, but they, like, photocopied, and that's how they animated either,
Oh.
Vulture or Spider-Punk, and I was like, "Oh, that's fantastic."
I know that Spider-Punk, and I don't know if they did the photocopying, but I know one of the things with Spider-Punk that they did do was slow down the frame rate. So he was a lot choppier, similar to Miles in the first movie, and then he became smoother towards the end with a higher frame rate. But I think I read or heard somewhere that Spider-Punk's frame rate for animation in this film was like 6 frames a second.
That sounds about right because there's an inherent choppiness to it where you're like, okay, it looks like you can tell where the visual inspirations are coming from. Yeah, but
It feels
I
very punk. It feels in line with his character.
for sure it actually reminded me a lot of the visual style of Cruella.
Oh,
Um,
I haven't seen Cruella yet. Is
Go
that
see
bad
it.
to admit?
No, it's not bad to admit. I think a lot of people underestimated that movie, and honestly, if I hadn't had it to review, I don't think I would have seen it either.
Now, are you talking about the Emma Stone film?
Yeah.
With the yeah, set in the punk rock. Okay. I can see that. I can understand given especially given the setting and the similarities.
But yeah, once I saw the difference of mediums, like, and because we, I won't spoil how it opens, but yeah, just the mixing of mediums, I always find to be a cool thing, and I hope it's something that Into the Spider Verse is being aped quite a bit, animation wise.
I know we're not in the spoiler part of it yet. And I'm sure we're going to dig deeper into this, but I know Across the Spider-Verse had quite a bit of mixed medium stuff in there, and that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's what I'm referring to. Is I hope that kind of transfers over to other films.
Yeah.
Where that's that experimentation because I think we're getting into that point where some of the Disney movies look the same.
Mhm.
The like Wish looks like Encanto, and Encanto looks Luca and stuff like that,
Oh,
you know?
really? See, when I've seen because I've been to the movies quite a few times, and for me, I've seen the new Paw Patrol movie 3 times in theaters, which is a whole other discussion, and the Wish trailer plays before the Paw Patrol movie and before all the kids' movies, understandably, and I thought that it looked so different than recent Disney animation. I'll have to go back and watch Encanto again to see just to compare because it just to me, it looked really visually different, so I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, continuing overview, let's do pro cons. What did you like about this, and what did you dislike about the Across the Spider-Verse?
The dislikes are gonna be hard, but I'll talk about so I love Gwen Stacy. I love just the character, and I was so excited that we started the movie out from her perspective. I think that she, although this is very much the story of Miles Morales and his journey, I like that it's almost a two-hander and that we see a lot of her deeper moments. We see her relationship with her father, we see what's at stake for her, and we see her lose in some ways that relationship with her father as he finds out that she's a spider person. And then she goes off to the spoiler alert Spider Society. But I think that everything Gwen was fun, character wise, narrative wise. And also the animation with Gwen was just really beautiful. There are these watercolors, and when things would happen on screen with her, the moments with her father, the what things in the animation, things with the watercolors would shift, right? They'd become more pronounced, they'd become either crisper. It was just incredible, and I loved that.
Yeah, there's a moment where towards the end, which I'll try not to spoil just yet, because we will talk about Gwen and her dad, where I think the watercolors shift from blue to pink within like an instant. And I think what I liked about that is that it feels that's straight from the comics. Like
Yep.
that same art style. For those who have watched this and haven't read the comics, it's a one-to-one thing, which is just fantastic. But yeah, I like the artistry. I liked the how different the plot was in terms of uh compared to Into the Spider-Verse, where I think Into the Spider-Verse kind of got squeaky at times. I think this is okay. We've learned some mistakes from Into the Spider-Verse. Let's refine this down a little bit because I think the Act 2 and Act 3 just feels pretty seamless and just how it goes because I was rewatching it recently, not related to this podcast, but at all. but I was just like rewatching it because I bought it recently. I was like, oh wow, it really moves.
Yeah,
Um,
nothing
pacing
lags.
wise, yeah, yeah. But I will say one teensy thing, and we'll talk about more in spoilers. I do think the ending does, even though I knew this is a two-part movie because they announced it as Across the Spider-Verse Part 1 and Across the Spider-Verse Part 2 and then renamed it to Across the Spider-Verse and Beyond the Spider-Verse, but it definitely feels like it ends in the middle of the story, so that's, like, the minor thing for me.
Yeah. I think so it's interesting because it's a cliffhanger and we're not used to. I won't say that because the Infinity Saga, there was a pretty massive cliffhanger there where everyone was dusted. We have a similar ginormous cliffhanger in this movie. And I think my complaint about that is that I am impatient and we have to wait. And I don't like to wait now because I've been spoiled with streaming and binging and just hitting next episode.
Yeah, and maybe that's what's changed is the morning before Loki and Invincible comes out, I'm like, "Oh, it's not that the day it comes out. I gotta wait another day."
Yep.
And, and then you have that temporary thing of, can it just be tomorrow? Or can they just release it a day earlier or something like that? Ahsoka
And
spoiled me.
we used to wait too. Television used to be, there was this thing called appointment television. You would sit down every night at prime time and you would watch, okay, what was on your network TV, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock. And then if you missed it and didn't record it, you would just hope to catch it in reruns. You had to be there. And that's really changed.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't have to wait for the DVD box set anymore.
Yes.
But yeah, it's just a minor thing for me. Like, it's not even, like, a thing where it is. I'll just say how my audience reacted to it versus how I reacted to it. My audience reacted very negatively. Like,
Oh,
I don't think they were aware that this is a two-part movie because I think that's what's lost by not having that part 1, because with
hmm.
Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1, you knew, "Okay, part 1, so there must
You
be a
were
part
prepared.
2." Yeah, and by removing that from Across the Spider-Verse, I think maybe expectations were adjusted to, "Oh, this is like a standalone thing," and then if there's a 3rd one, then that picks off from, like, maybe a year after, I don't know.
That's a
Um,
really great point. The audiences, if you're not online, if you're not paying attention to Twitter, X, whatever it's called, or reading the various sites, you might not have known that it is a two-parter, and that was could be a letdown.
yeah, and it wasn't that big of a deal for me because I am terminally online. Like, when a video is rendering on the other screen, I have YouTube videos going of screen crush or all of the different things because I'm like, "Okay, I can't use that screen, so I gotta use this one."
Yep.
But yeah, and like I said before we started recording, I watched Invincible 2 episodes last night, Invincible season 2, episode 2, and Loki season 2 finale. Most people would
Whiplash,
wait.
emotional whiplash.
I mean, really. But yeah, but with that said, let's talk about the multiverse.
Ooh.
Yeah, about the multiverse. Like,
It's
you think how did that work for you?
so I've so the multiverse is something that I haven't been told, and so in the larger MCU, I'm not totally sold on it. It just seems like an excuse in some ways to have the stakes not matter. If you kill characters, they're not really dead, they're here. And I think having stakes and having like things be final serves a point story wise. But then again, it's a comic book movie. So with the multiverse, there are like, I feel like billions of iterations of different comics. Things are coming back all the time. So I'm willing to give it some grace there. I thought that the multiverse and how it was explained in Into the Spider-Verse, or Across the Spider-Verse, was really well done. I loved the scenes with the many spider people. I think there were almost 300 variations of Spider-Man. that we got to see in 95 were named, which was
Yeah,
fun.
something like that, yeah.
Um,
Including, Insomniac Spider-Man.
yeah, so I was gonna ask you about that, given, again, talking in the pre-show about the video game, and he said something, right? He was in, and not to go into spoilers, again,
Yeah.
it's
Uh,
Yuri Lowenthal, right?
yeah, he was the voice actor in this movie and in the game, so yeah. It's weird how that's gonna shake out because having seen how Across the Spider-Verse connects to Spider-Man 2, I'm not sure, 1, that they're talking to each other about what they're doing, because it's pretty unclear because you see Spider-Man 2 being played by Genki,
Mhm.
but then it's very clearly not the Advanced Suit 2.0.
Yeah.
And would Peter not mention to Miles that he was in the multiverse and saw 300 other
They're all
Spider-Man?
keeping secrets at this point, I think, and a lot of the secrets are being kept from Miles, it seems, which is one of the underlying themes of the movie. I wanna hope that someone at Marvel or Sony or whoever, Disney, whatever organization has the rights to the Spider-Man character. There's some guy like Miguel with big books, keeping track of all the canon things, keeping track of everything that has happened for all the various spider people. So you just
Probably
know.
Avi Arad.
Yeah, exactly. Because I know with Star Trek's had almost 900 episodes, and they have people that keep meticulous detail. And there are a lot of Star Trek shows on right now, and they
A
all talk to
lot.
each other. They all have meetings where they like keep, okay, we're going to do this in this show and it's going to affect this show. So it's like there's communication. I want to hope there's someone doing that for Spider-Man.
Yeah, I kinda hope because otherwise it feels like a throwaway inclusion. Oh, hey, because, I mean, you saw the suit in Into the Spider-Verse
Yeah.
in, like, the little shack thing, spider den. Well, yeah, it's another thing to have them actually there, but
And this was a moment, I think this character's inclusion was something that was very exciting for people. And there was a lot of anticipation prior to Across the Spider-Verse for it.
yeah, like, I remember the internet, like, blowing up when they saw him on the poster.
Yep. And not only him, right? We knew that there would be many spider people. And there was a lot of speculation as to, okay, who's going to be included? What are we going to see? Who are we going to see?
I and this is no spoiler, I am still upset. My '90s child is upset that Ben Barnes didn't come back to voice the animated series Spidey.
Yeah,
That would have just been perfect, especially for what this film deals with.
it would have. But we did get Lego Spider-Man.
Yeah, there's a balance.
Or Lego Peter Parker. Was he? I don't remember right now. Was he in the Spider? Yeah, he was doing spider things.
Yeah, he's at the Daily Bugle, just hanging out, talking to Jonah, and then, yeah, things happen. But yeah, let's see. Gosh, I feel like we just should just probably go into spoilers at this
Yay!
point because we've been dancing around it. Give final thoughts on Across the Spider-Verse and or your rating, and then we'll move on to spoiler.
It's a 5 out of 5 for me. It was just a really fun movie. I think there's a lot of rewatch. It's beautiful. There's a lot of rewatch ability in there. It's just the music is fun. I think it's just a really cool movie.
Yeah, in short, it slaps. It is a great movie. I think it's probably even better than Into the Spider-Verse
Mhm.
for me, because I do think as a Spider-Man fan, there were some things about Into the Spider-Verse I was like, I don't know about that. And like nerdy things, not even like justified things. This Spider-Man does this, so wait, does that mean uh but anyhow, yeah, it's a 5 out of 5 for me. It's just it slaps. That's the headline you could put on it. I think it's in my top 5 of the year, if not top 3.
Oh,
Let me check real quick. Do
do you
letterbox
keep
time.
yeah, I was gonna ask, are you on Letterboxd?
Yeah, at
Do you
Austin
keep
B Movies.
Ah. I have a Letterboxd and I always forget to update it, and then I wind up updating it all at once in one day, and it looks like I've watched, like, 20 movies in one day, which is impossible.
Correction, it is number 7.
Oh.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem is number 5.
Okay, I can get that. That was a really fantastic movie.
Yeah, it's my 90s child fighting for dominance at that point. You win some, you lose some.
I think given the fact that there are two animated movies of such a really high caliber, I think we're all winning overall just with the fact that they're made.
Yeah, I just hope, and maybe this is like the animation person in me, um, like the animation snob in me. I'm like, I really hope uh, Across the Spider Verse repeats with what they did at the Oscars for Into the Spider Verse
Oh,
because I I'm there's it's rare that Disney or Pixar doesn't win, and I'm just
yeah.
like, and I'd even be fine with Studio Ghibli's The Boy and the Heron winning.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't think I could let Elemental be best animated feature. It's a good movie, but I don't know about best animated.
Yeah, no, I think it is a good movie, but as far as animation, as far as narrative, I think Ninja Turtles and Across the Spider-Verse are just they're on a different level entirely.
Yeah, for sure. With that, let's get into spoilers. If you have not seen Across the Spider Verse, for whatever reason,
What are you waiting
this
for, first of all?
it's on Netflix. It's on Netflix. What are you doing? It's on Netflix. Go watch it.
Pause this
Um,
podcast and then come back.
exactly. Um, but if you're still here, let's talk spoilers. Okay. So let's talk about the major plot. What was most surprising or impactful in this movie?
And I alluded to this a little bit earlier, but I think seeing all of the spider people in not Miguel's lair, and I forget what it was called exactly, but it's just the tower
Man,
of it was their
yeah,
version of Avengers Tower, but it was Spider Tower. And there were like Peter Parkers everywhere. I think that was just really a fun bit. And I think it had so much meaning because of all of the different iterations of Spider-Man and Peter Parker, everything it represented, and because it was really Miles stepping forward. So he had a taste of this in the previous movie, but Miles really stepping forward into the multiverse, into this gateway of possibilities and this of things that could be and things that had been for other spiders.
yeah, and that's something directly carried over from the comics too.
Yep.
Is I can't remember what they call it in this, but they're messing around with canon a little bit here, but I'll allow it because in the comic books, the web of life was what connected all these spider people
Hmm.
together by Madam Web,
Yep.
which, if you don't know, it's not Dakota Johnson. It's this old lady just sitting on a throne, and there's webs behind her, what they look like in Across the Spider Verse.
And you're talking about the upcoming movie coming out, right? The Madam Web Sony movie.
No, I'm talking
That's
about the character in the comic books
okay. I see what you're saying.
and how it differs because there is a Madam Web movie, and I that that's I don't know how I feel about that, but
Digging into not going too far into spoilers, I know there's like the old lady iteration and stuff going on with that one. So we're supposed to get a trailer soon. I'm sure we'll know more.
yeah, fingers crossed it's not just Hot Girl Summer the movie, which I guess Mean Girls is gonna be that,
I have
but which
so many
I'm
thoughts on
on
Mean
board for that.
Girls.
But Renee Rapp can do no wrong. But anyways, yeah, I really like that the towers. I'm just gonna call it Spider Tower, S Tower. I don't know, but it's basically I think that headquarters is in not Beanox. That's the people who made Edge of Time. Was it Alchemax? Is who Spider-Man 2099 works for in the comics?
I don't remember if he works for Alchemix. I know Alchemix is in every single one.
Okay,
Um,
which might tie into Beyond the Spider Verse, given
yeah,
Spot's origin story.
of course.
But I really like that, and I really one particular moment. It's when we see Donald Glover in there as the Prowler, which I thought, okay, like, what are your thoughts on that? Is that MCU Prowler?
Yeah, I think it's definitely MCU
Okay.
I want to think it's MCU Prowler. I think there's a comment where Hobie says he caught him, and that was
Yep.
interesting. I think if it's MCU Prowler, it's especially interesting because, of course, in No Way Home, or not No Way Home, in Homecoming,
Mm.
I think it's Homecoming. It's the first one where he says that he's got a nephew. And then actually in the deleted scenes of that, he talks about his nephew's name is Miles. I think
Yeah, he
it's
does.
like a full circle moment. And obviously the Prowler is very significant to Miles and in across the Spider-Verse and just throughout all of the Miles's lives. I think it definitely connects him to the MCU.
Yeah, if we want to talk about canon events, I have a theory about
Okay.
Beyond the Spider-Verse. His canon, Miles' canon event isn't his. What's his
Dad,
dad's name?
the
Uh,
captain,
yeah,
oh
like
goodness.
Jefferson, Davis Jefferson or something. That's what he's named in the game. It's something different in the movie.
Jeff Morales.
Jeff Morales, and I think his actual canon event is Prowler dying.
I thought that too. I thought that was what they were, especially because there wasn't Miles was is the only Miles at the Spider-Man, right? There aren't any
Yeah,
other Miles Moraleses that are Spider-Man, which you can talk about if that was meant to be with the 40 Universe 42 and the Spider, but he doesn't have an Uncle Ben. He doesn't have any of that. So I think the Prowler, who was a mentor to him, his uncle, I guess it's his uncle, still really fits that bill.
and I think the theory that supports that, by the way, is after I watched Across the Spider-Verse, I went back and watched there. You can only watch this on the iTunes extras,
Okay.
or the Blu-ray, or I don't. There's alternate universe mode. You have to watch that mode,
Okay.
and I think that's the definitive version of the Into the Spider-Verse because it connects to Across the Spider-Verse seamlessly.
Oh,
Like, it even hints a little bit more about the Earth 42 connection and things like that.
well, that'll be worth checking out then.
Yeah, because I think even in that alt universe mode, they talk about there's a deleted scene, which is then integrated in, where I think Peter talks about wanting to have a kid and why he wants to have a kid, which
Yeah.
kinda ties in with a specific moment where Peter's, "No, I had Mayday because of you."
Yeah. Which is
Because I
just real it's a wonderful thing and it's interesting too because Miles is still a young man and it's putting a lot of not responsibility but a lot of it's an interesting thing for an older adult to say like a young man you inspired me. It's a reversal of the traditional mentorship thing
which I think
because
is nice, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, but yeah, go check out that mode. And if you haven't bought Into the Spider-Verse, what are you doing? What are you doing? Um, but jokes aside, because I don't think you can watch the alt universe on mode on streaming services.
Oh, I don't know. So I just got speaking of alternate things, I was prepping for the Marvels and I got I guess the bonus edition of Captain Marvel, and there's 9 hours there, and I couldn't watch 9 hours of stuff, bonus footage. So,
Interesting.
I don't know, is the Into the Spider-Verse footage that long?
No,
Okay.
and it's basically like its own movie.
Okay.
It it just interweaves some like deleted scenes and other things where I think they even stop the movie at points where it's like where Christopher Lord and Miller come back on and here's what's going on,
Oh,
and
nice.
yeah, um, but yeah, it was definitely made in hindsight, I think, between Into the Spider-Verse and Across, um,
Yeah.
but yeah, I recommend that, because I think it specifically, it goes into a lot more it makes Spot's journey a lot clearer in Across the Spider-Verse.
He seemed to come in Across the Spider-Verse, he seemed to come a little bit out of nowhere. We're given his journey, we're given his origin, and we're made to understand that he blames Spider-Man for his destruction, and he's so Spot's motivation, like he's embarrassed into taking revenge almost.
Yeah.
And I think that it's a powerful motivator, but also you don't think he's going to be a scary villain at first.
Yeah. And I think it ties into a lot of the things. It's almost a meta commentary on how comics work
Mhm.
because let's face it, Spider-Man has some weird villains. I
Are you
mean,
saying that a rhino trampling through the streets of Manhattan is not totally, like,
oh, I'm talking like
understandable?
the Z list. I'm talking
Uh.
Stiltman, Big Wheel, uh, Tombstone's not Z list, but yeah, like stuff like that. Spider-Man has a lot of that, and Spot is definitely one of those
Coming to
lower
a movie near
tier.
you soon.
What?
All the Z-list people. I'm just
Oh,
making yeah.
I mean, Craven's more like I'd say CD.
He's got a following. There are people excited about the Craven movie.
Yeah, let me just talk about that real quick. Not the movie, but Craven.
Okay.
All y'all that are complaining about Craven in Spider-Man 2, please, I beg of you, read a little bit. Read a comic book storyline known as Craven's Last Hunt.
I have the book behind me or the comic behind me.
Legitimately, that yeah, I won't go into Spider-Man 2 spoilers, but it's a pretty direct adaptation of that book. Go check that out if you've got some weird thing about Craven not being a good villain. But anyways, that said, I am excited for the Craven movie
Oh, same here.
because of Chameleon and stuff like that. Because Chameleon's like Loki, one of my favorite Spidey villains.
I mean, you have a lot of really good in addition to, the MCU characters or the Sony characters, like you have just some really Oscar-winning actors. It's I don't think they're gonna phone home a performance. I think they're gonna give their best.
Yeah, everyone except for Russell Crowe. We all know where we're getting there, but I'm excited. I want to see it sooner rather than later. But that said, yeah, I think it did. Spot's journey really did tie back into the meta commentary of yeah, a lot of Spider-Man's villains are seen as jokes. There's a famous comic book panel. I can't remember the villain he faces. Maybe it's the Spot where the villain tells him Spidey his name, and then he just lies on the floor laughing at him, and
Uh-huh.
he laughs at him so hard the villain just says, "All right, just take me to jail." But yeah, I think that was a nice meta commentary on like how Spider-Man's villains are like kind of goofy, like you mentioned earlier, Rhino.
And I think you're right when you say it's like a meta commentary on comics too, because comics there are issues frequently. You can explore the multiverse, you can do deep dives, you can have the Hypno Hustler, you can have Rocket Racer, you can have all these dudes don't who are maybe one offs or two offs that aren't going to affect the balance of the universe, but are still fun to play with.
Yeah, and kind of makes me. I won't spoil something I think is going to happen. Anyways,
The next Spider Verse,
yeah.
I think you totally should. We have
So
theories, right?
yeah, so let's just jump to those really quick because I've got a few theories. I Do you think Mr. Negative's gonna show up?
I think so.
He's such an integral part of
He's in the he's a big deal in the comics, I think. And I don't know, I wonder if people would be confused with Spot and Mr. Negative, if that's like too much
maybe.
conceptually, even though they're very different. How do you think Mr. Negative will make an appearance? Because you mentioned him. What do you think will?
I think in a roundabout way, I think he's gonna be involved a lot like he is in Spider-Man 2, the game,
Mhm,
where I think he'll be like integral to like Miles figuring out what kind of Spider-Man he wants to be.
mhm.
And I do think it will be revealed that Spider-Man 2099, there's something going on there
And this
that
is Spider-Man 2099 is Oscar Isaac's Spider-Man, right?
mhm,
Yeah,
yeah.
the
Um,
keeper of the chronometers.
I, I, because there's a very specific line Layla brings up. Not Lila. Is it Layla? Lila? The
Oh,
AI?
yeah, I know which one you mean. I'm blanking on her name, though. I can picture her. There were a
Yeah,
lot of spider people.
there are a lot. She mentions like a thing of that's what the algorithm says.
Mhm.
Like hinting there's been a time where you've done something against the algorithm and it worked.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think the next movies, other than the obvious thing, is just gonna be like the race to back home and to save his dad.
Do you think is he gonna save his dad? Is he going to break?
He is.
You think so?
And I think that will change what Spider-Man 2999 thinks about how the multiverse can be affected by
Okay.
emotions and w what yeah, just the whole thing. I think that yeah.
Does the web break or unravel? Do we have to once because him saving his father would be an event for the canon, um, and that puts the web at risk.
I think it'll be like there'll be a moment where there's a shot of the not Tree of Life.
But no spoilers for Loki, but the sacred
Where
timeline, right? Because in Across the Spider-Verse, we see the sacred branch timeline, but it's like pointing up. It looks like a tree. No spoilers. But in Loki, I think season 1 and season 2, is it Loki? Yeah, you see the sacred timeline with the TVA, and it's horizontal. And you see the branches. There's that mirroring of the timeline of the universes connecting the two, the MCU and then the Spider Verses.
yeah, I think there'll be a shot where it's like Miguel is looking at the web of life or the what is it called? Whatever it's called. And then he's waiting for the cannon to break, and then it just doesn't happen. And then he starts to question, like, "Wait, what have I been doing?" And that'll be like a midway point of Beyond the Spider Verse.
It's interesting too because he's not the point with the canon event is like it's really important to the development of the type of Spider-Man you are and the type of Spider-Man like and just in the Spider-Man lore, you have to suffer this great loss. And so not just Miles obviously doesn't want to suffer this loss, and Miguel didn't want to suffer this loss either. And he tried to have a life, but there are all these other spider people who don't want necessarily want to have had their loved ones die either. It sets up some interesting dynamics there.
Yeah, because there's a line in Into the Spider Verse before they go leave for the Collider, where they Spider Ham says, "You can't always save everyone, Miles."
Yep. And that's something maybe you can.
Yeah, I definitely think you can. I hope that's how it happens. Go
The
ahead.
belief and the idealism that you can save everyone, I think, is very a young Spider-Man, a very Miles Morales thing too. And I think that's what helps distinguish him from maybe the other more jaded spider people because he saves when in Mumbattan, he saves Captain Singh. Like he saves he doesn't want to let anyone perish.
Yeah, and I'll be interested. Do you think they saved Mumbattan?
I don't know. I imagine we're going back and we're going to see more of what's going on there and the effects on that timeline or that multiverse, that universe.
Yeah, because I'd be very interested because I think that'll like forecast where the movie's going. Um,
Absolutely.
but I think we're dancing around the ending. So let's talk about Miles 42. That's eh, what did you think of the whole idea that Miles is the original canon event, the original method? I forget what Miles actually says, but you're the original canon event or something like that.
He's saying was a mistake, basically. Him
That's
being
it.
bitten by the spider was a mistake. And obviously, it's changed things in these two universes, in Miles's universe and then Earth 42. And Earth 42, Miles is the Prowler, and he's got his Uncle Aaron helping him do his misdeeds. In and obviously his dad is dead in that one. And
Yeah.
then in Miles' regular world, that cross universe spider came in and bit him, and that means he couldn't bite Earth 42's Miles or 42's Peter Parker.
Yeah, and yeah, it's interesting. Like I think the whole concept of like in transdimensional spider is interesting because that's not how it is in the comic books.
Yeah,
it's much more. Forgive me if I'm. It's been a while since I've read the comic book origin. I think how it happens in the comic books is like a spider escapes from like Oscorp or something like that, and then bites Miles.
I don't remember from the comic book
Yeah,
exactly because
it's
it's
been
also
10
been
years.
it's been a while. And I start to mesh what happened in the comic book with what happened in the movies because the movies feel like comic books, right? They're such
Yeah.
a great, they just take that medium and run with it. And I wanted to mention that earlier too, but I don't remember where that happened.
Yeah, I think specifically when we talk about that, I think that talks about Gwen Stacy quite a bit because of that one-to-one adaptation
Yeah.
of the comic books to the screen, which was interesting. But yeah, I just think that change is quite interesting, and I'm a little upset as a Spidey fan for one thing and one thing only. And you're listening to the Spider-Man podcast now. No, but this is the only film we get the Sinister Six, and we don't even see them
Oh.
because there's a thing on the TV or on the radio or something at the cider where J. Jonah Jameson talking about like,
He's in every iteration, it seems. He's just so iconic.
yeah, and always J.K. Simmons
Yep.
because always
It can't be
um
another voice.
it just can't be. But he talks about the Sinister Six cartel, and I'm like, oh, that sounds so interesting. And we were
Yeah.
so close with Amazing Spider-Man, but maybe one day.
I think we'll still get that in probably live action. Maybe it'll come out first in the next Spider-Verse movie, but I think they're definitely trying to build to that.
Yeah, it's just a Spidey fanboy's big thing to see,
Of
like, the
course.
Sinister Six. Actually, if I don't get Sinister Six, here's the thing I want: Spider Slayers.
Oh,
The
now do you think
Tinker is slept on,
interesting.
and they set it up in Homecoming
Y-
because you have the
he-
Tinker in there, and all subsequent versions of the Tinker are just like a one-off villain, and I'm like, "No, do the thing."
I think they laid the breadcrumbs too for either the Spider Slayers or the Sinister Six because you had the Vulture, you had the Tinker,
Mhm.
you had yeah. So just
Uh,
imagine somewhere out there, there's a Renaissance Sinister Six. Think about that.
ooh, that would be nice. But yeah, I was gonna say we also have the Shocker in the MCU.
Yes.
But yeah. But anyways, this has been Fanboy Hour. No.
It's true, and that's okay. If you're
Um,
listening to this, you know what you're getting into.
but yeah, I just really like the idea of playing around with origin stories because I think when we become too tied down by these origin stories, I think it becomes limiting because I think even you look at the game version of Miles Morales versus the comic version of Miles Morales versus the movies version of Miles Morales, they're three different people, and I think that's so cool. But speaking of Miles, let's talk about Miles and Gwen.
Okay.
I know we're hopping around a little bit, but Amy Pascal talked about this kind of being, you talked about it being a two-hander.
Mhm.
And Amy Pascal, who produces the movie and a lot of the Spider-Man movies,
And she's from
um,
Sony or was from Sony, and now she has her own company, but still has, I believe, a stake in all the Spidey stuff.
yeah, Pascal Pictures. But yeah, she described it as this kind of love story between Miles and Gwen. How did you feel that, or
I I'm all for we all love to ship characters. We all love to see to put these characters together and enjoy when they play off of each other and just see that. And I think Miles, the way he's set up in this film, is definitely pining for her, right? He draws in that adolescent love, he draws pictures for her, or like of her. His sketchbook is littered with her pictures. He's a little embarrassed when she sees it, but I think at the same time, she also is she's broody and she misses him. And I think there's definitely a pull between them. I don't know if it's a grand love story because they're being kept away from each other, right? They obviously have these feelings for each other, but they just can't like life different universes in this case. are the obstacles in that, and it will be interesting to see if they can overcome that somehow. Maybe the Spider Society will be involved, if they will just have a really strong friendship, or if maybe they'll get a happy ending at the end.
Yeah, here's hoping, but I'm personally of the there's certain lines in this movie where I was like, "Dang, Miles, you are obviously so down bad for Gwen,"
Oh,
because
absolutely.
what does he say to his parents about what he wants to do? He talks about wanting to travel the universe so he can find his friends
Yeah.
or something like that. And I'm like, dude,
What does he call her? I forget. It's not
Gwanda.
Gwanda. Gwanda, is it? Okay.
And it's just, man, it's okay, Miles. It, it ain't that deep. But yeah, I thought that was. I don't think it's necessarily a love story. I think it's just like you said, two people separated, and I think that natural separation after such a like life or death experience. They talk about I forget what they talk about with psychology, but there's the idea of people growing closer after a near death
It's like a
experience.
trauma bond almost.
Yeah. So I think it's almost like that rather than an actual love story.
I would
So
love for them to end up together, but to ride off into the sunset.
yeah, it'd be nice to Gwen not have her neck snapped for once. Or come back as a Jackal clone or anything like that.
Speaking of Spider-Man comic deep cuts.
Yeah, that's pretty recent. That's yeah. Also, a slept-on villain, Jackal. Everyone forgets about him after the Clone Saga, and it's no, he's actually really smart. So is Morbius. The movie didn't do him justice.
It's not Morbin time.
It's
I
not
did
Morbin
not see
time.
the movie. I
You're good.
The trailers
You
did
do
not
not
make it
need to
look.
see it. But getting back to Spider-Verse, let's talk a bit more about Gwen.
Okay.
We talked earlier about Gwen's father, Captain Stacy, quitting the NYPD. What did you think about that decision? Because it comes really sudden. I
Yeah.
feel like it just comes out of nowhere, where he's like in the middle of this argument, and they've had a lot of arguments in this movie.
Yeah, they were very close. Like, you've got every indication that he's been an amazing father, super involved in her life. And you can tell at the beginning of the movie she wants to share this with her. She's or share this with him. Like, she looks at the picture and the drum. She like There's a part of her she can't share with her father, who she was very close with before, and that weighs on her because it's been them.
Yeah, and I thought the line of "This mask is my badge" was so
It's
well done
profound.
because feel free to correct me, but I don't think they have much of a relationship in the comics.
Oh, I don't remember. It's been such a while, so I'm taking it
Yeah,
at the relationship from the movies.
YouTube commenters, feel free to comment like how wrong I am. There will probably be many corrections to this
Oh boy.
podcast,
That's
but yeah, I haven't read every comic. Surprise! But yeah, I just thought that relationship was really wholesome because I think, as to my knowledge, back when I was reading Spider Gwen when it first came out, they didn't have that relationship. It was just here's Gwen and her band, the Mary Janes. Um,
which we get to see in this movie throughout a couple of times, and we get those cool drum sequences.
yeah, and that was so cool. That was so cool. The way it was visually represented, because that's how it feels playing an instrument. It's like you're in your zone, and then suddenly somebody says something, and you're like, "Oh, right." Uh, but yeah, all in all, I really like everything they did with Gwen and Miles, and I think one of the best lines going to Miles is actually his mom's line. She has this big speech in the middle of the movie when she tells him to go with Gwen.
Mhm.
I hope it's that line's paid off in the next movie because they really don't call attention to it at the end of the movie when I think it was most relevant. But Rio says, don't let anyone tell you don't belong." And a
Yep.
lot of the central conflict is Miguel telling him, "You
Mhm.
do not belong here."
Yep.
So I hope they pay that off in the next movie. I
I
or
hope so. I
Yeah.
hope so too. And to go back to that moment, it was even more interesting because that's the last time Miles hears from that's the last moment between Miles and his mom. And she's essentially saying, go in peace, you belong, don't and it's a pep talk. And for all we know, it could be the last time he ever talks to his mom. And it's his universe mom, because he does
Yeah.
later on talk to different universes.
Yeah. Earth 42's mom,
Yes,
Rio.
where we have the Prowler Miles.
Yeah, and they they can kill off Jeff, but if they kill off Rio, we're gonna have fighting words in that theater.
Oh, it's gonna be very sad, just like with Aunt May in
Oh,
No
don't
Way
talk about
Home.
oh, I thought you were gonna talk about the Spider-Man PS4 game. I'm like,
I
that
haven't played that, so I can't speak to that.
oh, yeah, play that. Get ready to have your heart ripped out in the at the ending of that game.
I think so. What's interesting to me is I think that, like, if the character's done its job narratively, you'll really feel their death, and it will be a significant milestone for the characters that it's affecting, as we've seen with the spider people and how the deaths are canon events. So I think if that does happen, if Rio is gone at some point in the future, that will be pretty impactful for Miles.
Yeah, his mom is his guiding light a lot of the time, even when his dad isn't.
Guiding light and hearts, she's a big part of him. Do you think that Gwen, to go back to her a little bit, do you think that Gwen is going to play a big role in saving Miles in the
That's
next
actually what I was
iteration?
gonna talk about next,
Yeah,
where they're
perfect.
stranded in different universes. I do think Gwen is gonna have this big moment where she says, "Hey, I talked to your mom. She says it's okay. You can come back home. Let's just figure this out together. We'll save your dad together." And
Yeah.
I saved my dad, so that means the future isn't set in stone. And
And
I
it's a
can
moment.
actually see it in my mind right now, and I'm like, "Oh, please do not tear up." But, yeah, I think there's gonna be, like, this moment where there's this huge thing where Gwen tells Miles, My dad quit because of me." And so that means the future isn't written, we can make our own future. Um, that actually ties into Loki. Um, but, um, but yeah,
Make your
but
notes for the podcast with.
oh, yeah, I got a lot of notes. Uh, but but yeah, like, I think there's gonna be a moment like that, and maybe even a moment where Rio has to talk to Miles and say, um, I if he fails, where she says, "It's okay."
Yeah. That'll be important for him to realize and accept, as long as he doesn't fail at his Spanish class. Life,
Yeah,
he can make mistakes
she
in
might
life,
kill
but
him that way.
yeah, that's like irrecoverable.
Yeah, you can be late with the cake, but failing Spanish class,
Not okay.
not okay. But other than that, like, a big moment is Miles really trying to tell his parents that he's
Mhm.
Spider-Man, which is interesting because, well, I don't wanna spoil the games for you, but but I think in the comics, like, everyone knows he's Miles.
Mhm.
Miles is Spider-Man, and it's just, like, an open secret. Yeah, with his family, yeah, and Genki, of course. But here, it's just much more, "I've gotta keep this secret in, and that's how people stay safe," or something like that.
And
Um,
that's hammered home by the Peter Parkers, right? He's seen the destruction and death that has followed the other Peter Parkers when the identity has been revealed, and he's seen what's happened there.
yeah, and do you think what do you think about that? Do you think that we're obviously gonna get a moment where Miles tells Rio or his dad, "Hey, I'm Spider-Man, hi."
I think there will be a moment like that, and I'm curious to see if it will play out similarly to the moment with Gwen and her dad. I'm curious if it will be a forced moment or it will be a moment of Miles's choosing, because I think that will be like that matters.
I just had a thought, and it's a terrible thought.
Okay.
What if this is gonna suck if it happens. Like, what if in Beyond the Spider-Verse, like, Miles is revealing his identity to his dad, Jeff.
I think that might be likely.
Wow.
Because obviously Jeff is worried about his son. He's jumping out of windows. Things are going on with him that are outside the bounds of normal teenagehood. And I think if he takes off his mask as this, I can see it like his dad is dying. Their final moments, it would be emotional, but also expected.
And I think it'll happen in a direct parallel to the Prowler's death.
Yep,
Yeah.
exactly.
So
Because that we've seen that scene, right? We've seen that happen, and we've seen what a difference it makes.
yeah.
And that baggage and those scars will go with him.
Yeah. Sometimes literally, because I think Miguel tears the suit or something like that.
Yeah.
It causes a big thing. And Miles, please don't design a suit that has your armpits bleeding. Other than that, gosh, you said you wanted to mention Loki season 2?
Oh, yeah, and I think we covered it a little bit. We talked about Yggdrasil, we talked about the sacred timeline. I'm curious to see how Miguel had this watch, and you and I talked a little bit about how He Who Remains had a watch version of his tempad, but I wonder if maybe that watch, that chronometer, if we'll see the connections like that somehow be
Maybe.
in the future. I don't know, it's something to see.
Yeah, stay tuned for that whenever Beyond the Spider-Verse comes out, because I do think they have because it's interesting because they're aware of the MCU,
Of
because
course. The Prowler
Miguel
and
yeah, Miguel specifically calls out that nerd back on Earth 999 yeah, which is
Doctor Strange, right?
yeah,
Who shouldn't
uh,
practice medicine. Was that in this movie or was that in the movie before? It was in this movie.
it was in this movie at the beginning when they're fighting, Vulture in
Yeah.
the Guggenheim.
And we also see the Venom universe, right? We
Yeah.
didn't even talk about that, but that's the other live action world that's connected to that.
Do you think that's, like, something they filmed for, like, Venom 3 or something like that? I don't
I think it's more of an Easter egg, and I think
okay.
I think we're going to see shades of the multiverse in every Marvel affiliated project moving forward. I think it would not be a big jump to assume we'll see something like that in Venom 3.
So, I mean,
Something related.
I guess let's talk about MCU and Across the Spider-Verse since we're already talking about it, and we'll include Venom even though it's its own thing. It's a Sony Spider-Man and I forget what they call it. Like Sony's Spider-Man cinematic universe or something like that.
Yeah, something
Um,
similar.
so what do you think the connection points for this movie are? Because we know in No Way Home, Venom, and we're spoiling
Mhm.
all the MCU stuff now, so sorry. Um,
You were warned that there were spoilers.
yeah. So yeah. Because one of the credit scenes is in Venom 2 is um Venom traveling to the MCU universe, and then in No Way Home he just comes back. Given that Spot travels to the Venom universe in this movie,
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you? Is that gonna be a connection in Beyond the Spider-Verse?
I think maybe we'll see a little bit more of it in Beyond the Spider-Verse. I think we'll definitely see more Easter eggs. We've talked about what we've seen. We've talked about the branching timeline. We've talked about, you just mentioned the Spot. We've talked about the Prowler. I think it's not like unrealistic to assume that we'll see other things like that coming forward.
Yeah, and I think we'll definitely see. I still think we're gonna get like a thing of Madam Web, a tease, and obviously we're gonna get. How much do you know about Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Verse?
I don't know much about the game.
But
I don't have a PlayStation. I have an Xbox, so I haven't.
same. I watched all of it on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
But there's an Across the Spider-Verse Easter egg in that where you collect these spider bots, and this bartender shows up and collects them and like it's got the same portal from Across the Spider-Verse.
Oh,
Um, so I'm thinking that'll connect back
that
and
could be a
beyond the
definite
spine.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's all connected, right? There's right now we're Charlie from It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, of him at that cork board with the threads. This is us right now finding out all the connections.
pretty much. And I don't think Craven ties in or anything else. I think it's just Venom, Madam Web, and whatever the next Spider-Man movie is.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's oh, and I guess Loki
We
season.
chatted a little bit about Loki, and I
So
think I don't is there
it,
anything else you have thoughts on Loki or
not really. Not that I won't talk about in this Loki season 2 podcast coming next week.
soon?
Yeah, I record on this Sunday.
Okay, so stay
So
tuned.
yeah, so stay tuned, everyone. But with that said, I think that about does it for this Across the Spider Verse podcast. I think we've exhausted like everything. I'm
It was
sure
a good
that
discussion.
yeah. With that, thank you everyone for listening or watching. However you do, whether you listened or watched the Lost to Be Media podcast. I've been your host, Austin Belzer. If you've enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating, and review on your favorite podcast app. And then if I think, let's see, if you're on Spotify, I do these little polls where I'll say, "Hey, have you watched the movie?" or "What did you think of the movie?" If you listen on Spotify or watch on Spotify, be sure to vote there. You can follow me on social media at Austin B Media on Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, and
All of the
Threads.
things.
Yeah, as well as Twitter, aka X, at Austin B Media underscore, and then on Letterboxd, I'm on there at Austin B Movies. And let's see, where can people follow you?
You can find most of my writing at thecosmiccircus.com. You can also find my writing at movieswetextedabout.com. I am only on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, because I don't have the bandwidth for another social network. But you can find me at TulinWrites, and I'm happy to talk comic books or comic
Yeah,
movies.
yeah. And speaking of, I should have some recaps for Invincible coming up soon.
Yay, exciting.
Yeah, I just got to get videos edited first. Um,
Ah,
yeah. But with that said, thank you for coming on, Isla, and maybe I'll see you when Across Beyond the Spider Verse comes out,
that
and whenever that comes out. I know it's off the schedule right now,
that'll
so
be a ton of fun, and I look forward to talking about that. Thank you for having me.
yeah, thank you for coming on.